Mic check.
You guys can get juice there. We have juice.
Hello?
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Okay.
So as I was saying, what we're here today to talk about, at least for this panel, is transforming that amazing wave of location applications, this unbelievably creative use of location that we've seen over the past 2 or 3 years, and starting to build products not for consumers but for businesses. And I think we have an amazing, a great kind of dynamic collection of people here between Tom, who's with Verve and is from the kind of display side, Stephen, obviously with Foursquare, the leading consumer location application, and then Brian with Pandora, and trying to understand location beyond just the lat long, and understanding how we rethink location, how non-location application developers start to fold it into what they do. And location-based services, a prediction recently, a $4.4 billion business in 2012. And we're just seeing more and more location inventory out there. So, one of the things I wanted to start with, wanted to start from Pandora's end. And radio has such a fascinating relationship with local, going back to the kind of terrestrial days. And Brian, if you could talk a little bit about Pandora and how Pandora views location and use it to kind of help their advertisers, that'd be great.
Sure. So, for us, we look at, our kind of digital and radio footprint as both a national play and also a local play. When you register for Pandora, we get all your demographic information, so we know if you're male, female, we know your age, but very importantly, we know your zip code, and that really helps us kind of localize the ad experience for our users. And so as we look at the mobile marketplace and especially the potential of local, we're sitting on all this great data. So we know a lot about you, not just demographically, but we know what kind of music you listen to. And it really helps us target our ads in a really unique way. And especially in mobile where there's no cookies and geo-targeting is very, very difficult. Unless you have that zip code information, it becomes a real chore for a publisher to really appropriately target ads locally. Because we have that data, we're able to really kind of localize the ads, and we're a big believer in that mobile is certainly a very localized experience, or it can be a very localized experience from an ad standpoint. So we're staffing up, quite a bit in a lot of these local markets, not just the big markets like New York and Chicago and LA, but also some of the secondary markets like a Phoenix or a Las Vegas or a Baltimore, because we certainly see a lot of potential with the local ad marketplace. And especially when we've done campaigns already, like really local campaigns, we've seen great, success metrics. So, we've done local car dealerships, local QSRs, and those campaigns really do perform even a little bit better than our national campaigns because they're so targeted to that particular user. So from a local standpoint, we're really bullish on this marketplace.
Right. So Stephen, obviously Foursquare gets a lot of press, both from us and others. And it's been an amazing ride watching it as a consumer application. If you could talk a little bit about how you view location in terms of advertising and monetization, and both how that is different or similar to how you view it on the consumer end, that'd be great.
Yeah, so first of all, it's fun hearing Walt because I was the guy at Quattro helping him make money early on when he was at Ware, so I'm glad it worked out for him. So with Foursquare, the way, I think as mobile evolves and the evolution of mobile and kind of understanding where consumers are, for us it's all about relevance. We have, now with 3 billion check-ins that we've amassed over the last 3.5 years, and million plus businesses on the platform, 30 million users, we have an incredible amount of data. It's something I know Walt also talked about. And what we're doing is really making sense of the data, because location without context and relevance is really not that powerful. So what we're doing in terms of with the data on the ad side and working with businesses, large and small, is really understanding what consumers want. Consumers want, so we launched this summer a native ad product, a product that is seamless within the experience. It's in our Explore tab, if you guys use that, which is our our search tab, our local search tab. So what we're doing is we're surfacing up content from merchants that are relevant to users based on everything we know about them, from their check-in history, proximity, what their friends are doing. And so because of all that, we're serving the right ad to the right consumer at the right time, and that's what's really powerful. So that's what we're doing on the on the business side, and we're seeing phenomenal results because of that. Not just BS metrics like click rates, but we're actually seeing people who see an ad actually go into the stores and not only go in, but also check in and purchase. So and on the consumer side, again, all this data that we have, the reason the 30 million people love Foursquare is because we're surfacing up, we're helping them discover new things all the time. So again, with all this information that we have from a consumer standpoint, what started out early on as mayorships and badges and check-ins has evolved, and we're using all that incredible data we have to help consumers discover and find new things, find businesses that they may not have found in the past, uncover new restaurants, and also find things that from businesses they love but help build loyalty with. So, it really is symbiotic from that standpoint.
I think one of the bigger issues in mobile advertising in general, and advertising in general, is this idea of native, and this idea of creating customized ad formats. And I think it's particularly relevant to location because location is such a dynamic asset. But one of the things we deal with in native versus display is the balance between efficiency and effectiveness. Tom, I know, from a display side, if you can, kind of give the argument of why the display ecosystem can effectively leverage location and make it worth it, and maybe how native advertising can really work that way.
Well, I think the way we look at location is we look at it as really a new data set, right? We really haven't had a new data set in digital marketing since the beginning, right? I've been in digital marketing and advertising since the mid-90s, and we've targeted on content as an inference about who might be looking at an ad. We've targeted on content, cookie data. We've integrated third-party data to enrich that. But in very broad strokes, that's kind of what we've done to date. And location brings a whole new dimension. It is, in many ways, as indicative about intent, about demographics, about context, as the sorts of things that people target on in cookie data, or the things that people have targeted on when content targeting was sort of, the sort of version 1.0 of digital marketing. So, and it's not, our view is somewhat broad. Our view is that it is a new data set, it's a critical data set, but it's the third leg to the stool. Content is still important. The sorts of things that we target on in cookie data, the ability to integrate third-party data, obviously anonymously, to the data that we have from a first-party perspective. That's the broad way of looking at location, is it brings a very new and important, valuable data set from which inferences can be drawn that in many ways are as powerful as the inferences that have been drawn from these other things we've targeted on. So, content is great, right? Depending on the content somebody's viewing, you can make some good inferences about who that person is likely to be. From cookie data, sort of basic implementations like looking at clickstream history and the sites they visited and making assumptions that they're an auto intender or they're a soccer mom or something like that. That's good. But we can do the same thing with location. And in some ways, it's better because it's real, right? We know that this person is is at a Whole Foods market in a suburban region on a weekday during school hours. The inference that that's a soccer mom is probably just as good as the inference of somebody viewing content relating to that sort of stuff, or looking at clickstream data in a cookie. So that's the way we look at it. We look at it in that broad whole, that broad view of the tools that are available to mobile marketers to reach customers in an effective way, and to reduce waste. So, not targeting the people who don't fit that profile is half the battle.
So Stephen, I think one of the questions is, Foursquare is big, and the question is, obviously native has worked for Twitter and Facebook because they're very, very big. Why is native going to be able to scale with Foursquare?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, I think the biggest, kind of misunderstanding with native, and I think 2013 it's going to be a big thing, is that it can't scale or it's very one-off or very customized. I think when you break it down, if you're, a national merchant and you have a creative agency, the nuts and bolts of it you're not recreating the wheel for every marketer or every platform. So I think there's a general misunderstanding. When we're talking about native, for us it's text and a photo, and those are assets and images that the vast majority of marketers have already. So that's one thing. I think the other thing, again, going back, been doing the same thing, been digital for 15 years, and we've all tried to kill the banner over the time, and for some reason it's continued to survive. I think mobile is going to force from a consumer experience standpoint, mobile is going to force us to really finally rethink what consumers want. And I think, to Tom's point, if it's relevant and it makes sense in mobile, then, display advertising will be fine, and marketers are still going to buy that. But I think, it comes down to relevancy and it comes down to consumer experience. So for us, we believe that the best consumer experience is to create content that exists in a place where our users are constantly going and searching, and to make it relevant. I think if you look at the ultimate native ad platform, it's search, right? And search, search is 50+% of the overall digital economy. So we believe that ads that are relevant and not intrusive to users' experiences, especially since we're primarily a mobile dominant company, that's important. So we do believe it can scale. We're starting to see that happen, and I think overall, again, what we're seeing from the results, both kind of the consumer feedback and the way they're responding, as well as from merchants, is that it's incredibly effective if done right. Not everyone can do it, and it's not right for every publisher. But I also think in a mobile world, banners that are not targeted, that don't take into consideration, relevance and that look crappy, aren't going to be right either. So,
I think one of the kind of interesting trends right now and movements right now, at least from our side as an industry, is trying to move away from this incredibly crowded SMB space. And not necessarily move away, but start to engage brands and start to understand location is not just a kind of point and radius proximity tool, but a way to help brands reach consumers and interact on a brand level. Brian, you guys deal with a lot of brands. How are brands using location? Is location going to be part of your product for brands?
Yeah, it really has. I mean, we've done, if you look at the campaigns we do, there's certainly a broad swath of national campaigns we do. So, the typical usual suspects in terms of mobile and digital advertising. But we've also had a lot of, I think, success this year with kind of second, third tier, kind of regional and local advertisers who are starting to leverage our platforms. We have so much data, and they're able to get into the game and get in the game in an efficient way. And to these guys' points, it's relevant. And I think when you look at yourself as a consumer, that national McDonald's ad might speak to you a little bit, but there was an ad that was even more localized, and there's a McDonald's around the corner from you. It's actually even that much more personal. And so as we talk to our advertisers, I think the two things we really impress upon them about the mobile platform is that it's personal and it's immediate. And if you especially think about local advertising, that's really the key point, is that immediacy. And I was reading something yesterday in one of the thousands of mobile newsletters I get every day, that if you look at kind of local search, if you're searching something locally, there's a much greater chance you're going to take an action on that search within the next 24 hours. If you're on your computer and you're looking for the closest Bloomingdale's, you might go tomorrow, you might go 2 weeks from now. If you're on your phone and you're looking for the local gas station, there's a good chance you need gas pretty soon. And so I think that's the power of local mobile advertising. It's so immediate and it's very personal. And so that's really where we've looked at, our campaigns over the last year have really, our second and third tier advertisers really looked at mobile from a personal and immediate standpoint.
I would say just to back up that point, we saw in some of our ads that we've rolled in aggregate, within those users who take action on the ads that we've run, check into that particular business over 52% within 24 hours of seeing that ad. So again, I think people, if it's right, they're willing to take action if it's relevant, and that's how we serve up every single ad that a user sees. They have to be not only near that location, but all the social signals that we have, it has to be relevant for them. And I think, again, that's where you see some incredible results.
I mean, that's the fastest growing part of our business, is helping national brands reach consumers at the local level. And that means incorporating a variety of tactics. So it might mean doing deep in-market penetration at the DMA level. It might, and on the same campaign, it might also mean geofencing their physical locations if they're a chain restaurant or a retailer, in that DMA to help the entry into a new market or store openings or things like that. And then there might also be an awareness campaign that has location powering it on the back end, so that the user basically gets to understand where all the Burger King locations are in Philadelphia, for example, right? So you might geofence the locations, which is really about driving foot traffic, right? It's about saying, you're within an impulse buy, or within a 3-mile geofence of the Burger Kings in Philadelphia. So that has one objective, which is to drive real-time foot traffic. And those metrics are different on the back end. But you might also say, on the same campaign with different creative, the message might be, click to see your nearest Burger King, show them all the Burger Kings on a map with pins, and then they'd know, well, gee, I live here, but I work here, but I drive by this every day. And that's informative too, because the whole objective is demand generation for Burger King in the Philadelphia region. So there might be multiple, and then we can even refine location, right? So then they say, click to find your nearest one, and then the map application can ask them for even better location. So there's a lot of tactics that can be, sort of blanket this DMA because it's a new entry, or we're supporting the franchisee. It can have geofencing for foot traffic. It can have what we call geo-aware, which sort of shows all the locations, and then through the funnel from landing page to map, gets real-time location and shows them the nearest one from where they are at that moment, but also educates them about the other ones, right? Because they might be near one right now, but they might also find out that they work near one, and they drive by one every day.
Yeah. So I think one of the kind of things about that is, how do we then track and show the deep value that we're creating around location? And obviously, CTR is not going to show that. Not going to show those high conversions. And I think couponing has been, one of the big tools we've used, not only to drive users into a location, but also to get some sort of measurement and sensor there. But I think there's got to be a concern about making the mobile location channel, a discount channel, having that kind of take over what we do. And Stephen, I know you guys have done a really popular campaign with Amex, and I think a lot of us are familiar with that. Can you talk a little bit about whether that kind of campaign, that relationship, is that kind of is that a trick, or is that something that could actually scale? Our relationship, we have a great relationship with Amex. They're really forward-thinking, and we're the first ones to pioneer, what is essentially their social platform that they have. So, again, that's a great example of what's good for the user and what's good for businesses. So when you see, 100,000 businesses running Amex specials, that if you use your Amex card and you've synced that with Foursquare, you check in, you swipe, you meet whatever the criteria of the offer is, and then automatically on your bill you save money. That's a win for everyone. I mean, I can't tell you how many marketers we meet with, and the first thing they always say is, "How do we do what you did with Amex?" But it worked really well, and not only can we prove that we drove people into their business, but because of the relationship with Amex, we're actually able to provide spend data and spend metrics back to the marketer. We had a similar relationship with Starwood. So if you're a Starwood, and I'm sure a lot of business travelers, most of you who travel for business are probably Starwood
cardholders. But same thing. So if you synced your Starwood account, your SBG account with your Foursquare account, you checked into a hotel, Star would deposit 250 Starwood points every time you did if you had a confirmed reservation. So those are great ways to prove metrics. But there are other ways too. Again, when we see when we report back someone who saw an ad who hadn't checked into that business before, now all of a sudden they're checking into that business. Now they may have been to that store before, but they just never felt compelled to explicitly tell their friends or share that check-in. That's an important metric, and we're seeing again the check-in rate from the ads we serve are 10x what you see for just an online, 10 to 15x what you see for an online click rate, and that doesn't tell you a whole lot. So again, we're able to prove those results, and it doesn't just have to be a discount or special. We have advertisers like Victoria's Secret who don't discount, but they have a lot of interesting new products for all I don't know a whole lot. My wife tells me it's interesting, but they're always promoting some stuff. Or Louis Vuitton, for example, luxury retailer that is working with us that would never discount, but they want their customers and they want the loyal Foursquare users, which they have a huge following, to know that there's new bags that just came in. And so again, it doesn't have to be just discount or offers. I think if there's something of value that informs consumers that they wouldn't know about ordinarily, that's also a huge win both for the user and the merchant.
Yeah, I mean, one second. So when if I'm a location-based publisher, I'm not as big as Foursquare, but I'm kind of gaining ground. What's the most important thing I can do right now to set my business up for success and to be able to set this structure to monetize correctly?
I mean, I think, obviously the quality of the data. So to the extent that you have an application that incents users to share location, and location is shared at the device level, and one can get lat long to target on, that has the pecking order in location is obviously device level lat long is the most actionable and the most valuable. But I think people foolishly look at that as sort of the whole market, right? Because if you read some of the market estimates, 5 to 10% of total mobile impressions have lat long from a user whose app has permission to ask for location, right? Many people don't know, but you can't actually get through the Apple iTunes approval process if you don't have a legitimate reason to ask your users for location. So that's sort of the first gate. And then, of course, users have to opt in to share location. So, 5 to 10% of total mobile impressions have lat long. And so businesses that are, big, broad national businesses that are trying to sort of leverage only that data have a serious scale problem. So I think, one of the tricks is understanding and providing whatever location data you have. So, super hyper-local publishers that are, at the town level or the, or the community level or the neighborhood level or a small city level, the fact that they are, that is location data in itself, right? If you're, if you're a publisher and you're publishing for Patch or for Gatehouse or for My City Life in Chicago, that's very good location data, even if the user is not sharing it. So share the fact that you are from, this town that represents these zip codes. Being able to understand and pass to monetization partners like Verve, other location data. If you have registration data, zip code, as Brian was alluding to, that's very valuable. So understanding sort of the fact that location data is valuable and that is not limited to lat long. Getting it if you can, but harvesting and leveraging for your own benefit, and to the extent that you're working with third parties like Verve, being able to pass it to them, and that will boost monetization.
Yeah, I'd say data is certainly important. I think we, as publishers, we tend to forget how important that is. But I think one thing we've also learned on the mobile space is that creative is so important as well. And even with some of the big national brands we work with, you would be surprised at how many of them just have no clue how to do good mobile creative. And I think it's important as a mobile publisher to not repeat some of the same mistakes we made on the desktop side. And so for us, I think if you're a publisher, it's in your best interest to kind of walk your clients through how to do good creative. And in some cases, do the creative for them, because bad creative is going to hurt that campaign, which only hurts you. So if you're a mobile publisher and you're really getting into this space, I would say find a good rich media partner to work with. Make sure you're having that creative conversation. So the campaign is great and all the brand objectives, that's all well and good. But you have to figure out how to make mobile creative really sing. And how does it really work for the user? And Stephen, you touched on this in terms of the value exchange for the user. I think when you can have that there's something in it for the user. Now, granted, it might not be an offer, but even if the creative does something that's a little bit out of the box and unique and fun, even that's a value exchange. Like you want to have that message in front of the user, but if there's nothing in it for the user, if it's not engaging, everybody loses. So I would say a big piece of advice is just think about creative and really invest heavily in doing good creative.
So, looking forward to 2013, I think we've got a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of exciting, fun things we can do. What are the biggest barriers in this space? What are the ecosystem challenges that we all need to get over in order to see some real traction in 2013?
I'm going to have to think about that for a minute, because I always tell my team I love sort of the market. I mean, we're in a market that's just growing faster than practically anything we've ever seen. I like Verve's positioning in it as the leader in location-powered mobile advertising. I look at my business and I think it's about execution. It's about having the right butts in the right seats and finding good salespeople and engineers. So, from an industry perspective, I think there's a lot that can be done on the data side. So Walt talked about leveraging big data to improve location targeting. We're spending a lot of time on that. We're trying to understand, and develop new tactics that leverage location. Geofencing or targeting people based on the context of where they are, or using third-party data to target people and match it with location, doing broader-based geo-aware campaigns. They're all tactics. They require a lot of ability to collect, harvest, leverage, mine, and then utilize data at runtime when an ad call comes in. And those are non-trivial tasks. And so, some of the sort of first generation location targeting techniques that we saw last year, those are going to be evolved, and we're going to see new ones. And I think so sort of geolocation audience targeting, using the context of the user, developing understandings of where people are and the inferences that can be drawn from that is one. And then also, building out the ability to understand users over time and enhance those profiles of users for location-based targeting.
I think we're in a unique position in that we've amassed, again, this large audience. Because we've started from a mobile first perspective. We didn't start with a desktop. We started with a kind of an app. We've learned along the way a lot of the hard stuff. We made a lot of mistakes, and I think we've figured out a lot that sets us up in a great position for 2013. I think if you're a small business, I think small businesses have to get comfortable. They have to understand that users, every one of their consumers has a phone in their pocket, and there's an incredible way, even if you're, whether you're Dos Caminos here down in Soho restaurant, who does a lot with us, and has gotten really creative, really, creating, special menu items just for Foursquare users. They're incredibly savvy and smart. But the smallest of small businesses, even Butter Lane Cupcake, fantastic cupcakes here in New York, they're actively using Foursquare to communicate with customers. And I think small businesses just have to get comfortable and understand that It is time. Users have these phones in their pocket, these computers in their pocket, and they have to get comfortable with that. And there's an incredible opportunity if you're an SMB to really drive that loyalty with consumers and build your business. From a large mass merchants, I think the thing that we see in the big savvy brands, Starbucks, Walgreens, that are really active with us and have been for years, Gap. Those marketers have really figured out and learned about what location can do for their business and how to leverage it. I think any big marketer that's out there that has physical locations has to get their data together. They have to get the table stakes are understanding every one of their store locations, the lat longitude of where those stores are, and just setting up presence on places like Foursquare and other places. So again, I see there are some marketers, believe it or not, that we deal with who really have no idea where their stores are and don't have a good understanding of managing that. And I think that's something that at the very least businesses have to do. But I think we can't be more excited again, with million-plus businesses and growing using the platform. We're seeing them really get creative and really get smart about how to connect with users on a local level.
I'd say in terms of what's holding us back is I think it's the mindset that we have as publishers and broadcasters, but also as marketers. And there's a quote that I like to use that I'll probably have to start paying royalties on this at some point because I use it all the time. But the head of the IAB, from a mobile standpoint, says that mobile is not a technology, it's a behavior. And I think that's where we as publishers have to embrace. We're no longer in control of the content experience, the user is. And technology has really kind of broken down the walls between how the user gets their content. And as a marketer, you have to understand that as well. And so I think that what our big mantra to clients this year is to not think about mobile in silos. When you think about your marketing budget, there's a tendency to think, okay, here's my digital budget, and here's my experimental mobile budget, and maybe here's my even tablet budget. And we don't encourage that thinking. We think about it as one digital budget. As a marketer, you shouldn't care what screen that impression comes from. All you want is that impression. Doesn't matter how you get it. You just want to make sure you're in front of that user. And the way that user consumes their digital content is changing by the day. And so that's our big push for this year, is to really get marketers to not think about their budgets in that way. And I think we as publishers have to not think about our content in that way. We're no longer in control of how users get it. We just want to make sure we give it to them in the best way possible, no matter what platform that comes from. So I think in terms of what's holding us back, I think it's the mindset that both publishers and marketers have.
Great. Well, I think that's probably a good time to stop and to see if there are questions from the audience. Yep, let's wait for the mic.
Samir Siddiqui from Deal Chicken. I have a question. Stephen, you talked about serving up the right ad to the right people at the right time. That's pretty much the holy grail that a lot of us are after. And so with mobile, it gives us contextual, it gives us location, and it kind of tells us where or what that person might be, so, the demographics of that person. And with your consumer base, so you have a lot of consumers, but then how do you penetrate at the hyper-local level? How do you get to the SMBs? It's easy to go to big stores like Louis Vuitton or whatever, have them serve up the ad, but how do you break into the SMBs and then get them? I just want to get your thoughts on that. I mean, I know there isn't a...
Yeah, I mean, fortunately for us, we did it, we built a self-service platform for small businesses several years ago. And so they've gotten comfortable. They started out creating specials for consumers. And so we've created a significant amount of tools and a platform for a small business to come in, basically own their own real estate on Foursquare, own their web, what their presence looks like, and in exchange, they also get a tremendous amount of data from us. So, we give them a reason to constantly come back and engage, not only because they create these specials and they see these results from consumers who actually take advantage of them, but then we also give them a lot of, kind of Google Analytics for the real world, as we like to say. So, I think it's hard to do it. If you're fortunate and you have a lot of money and you're a big company, you can do it through, brute force and build the old-fashioned sales force and get out there. But we've chosen to do it through technology, through engineering, and building kind of the tools. And we just get businesses who know to come to Foursquare, and I think that's a unique position to be in.
You having luck with that? People, SMEs coming in and using
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the majority of small businesses come through us they find us, they're using our tools that are out there. You know, it's not because we have hundreds of people calling on them. In fact, it's quite the opposite. So.
Great. I think we might have time for one more question.
Hello. Zach Beatty, C-Click-Fix. Steve, another question for you. You talked about mobile being the sort of the death of the banner and forcing you to find better solutions. And you did that pretty successfully with the Explore tab. How do you balance, you know, sort of promoted locations and that ad model with what the original function of the Explore tab was, which is, you know, your Yelp competitor, which was, you know, widely successful? Where's that, you know, balancing algorithm with the, you know, which is your special sauce, with that that promoted update, which is your revenue model?
Yeah, so you know what we're doing with Explore, we're the same algorithm and the same kind of data we use to surface up relevant content when you're searching for things is the same exact algorithm and technology that we're using to surface up the paid ads. So, you know, for us, again, if you would normally see a relevant business that's in Soho because you've checked into that same place or your friends have, you know, we're not going to serve you anything just because someone's paying for it. We're not going to just serve it and put it in front of you. It still has to be relevant. So the same Explore, you know, our local recommendation engine, which again is getting, you know, better and better every single day. It's phenomenal. I just, you know, used it when I was out in Vegas traveling, and the recommendations are fantastic. You know, that is the same. You know, the only thing we're doing, it's very search-like. Again, we're surfacing up. We're allowing a merchant to push their content to the top and just, you know, surface it to the top if, again, it's relevant with all the same signals we use when you're searching. So nothing changes from that perspective. As far as just the banner, you know, again, having launched the iAd platform at Apple and sold a lot of display ads, you know, banner ads they're still not gonna go away. I just think there's you know, some marketers still are gonna want that scale of a banner, but I think in mobile, from a consumer standpoint, that experience, if it's not good, you know, you can get away with it in the desktop web because it just gets buried and we kind of ignore it. But I think mobile, it's too, you know, intrusive. The screen is too small that I don't think you're going to, you know, it's really going to turn consumers off. And I think that's where the native push is going to become that much more important.
Great. Well, thank you so much, guys. And let's give them a round of applause.